All right, guys, welcome into my official college football week number 9 hot takes, where I give off some hot takes from yesterday's action. Starting off with number 1, Ryan Day needs to give up play calling duties. Guys, I think it's time to hand off the play calling to Kevin Wilson, who is more than capable. Unfortunately, the situation with Ohio State has gotten really bad with Ryan Day, just being so stubborn. He wants to run the ball. This is not what Nick Saban does. This is not what other coaches that are successful do. They do whatever it takes to win. They don't try and establish the run all the way into the third quarter just because they want to be balanced. Ohio State, it was very apparent early in the second quarter yesterday against Penn State, was going to have to throw the football, air it out on first down, on second down, whatever. And, once you get the linebackers back, that sets up the running game. Ohio State as an offense, the throw is going to set up the run, not the other way around. Ryan Day was stubborn. He wasted several drives all the way into the third quarter trying to establish a very inefficient run game, and the Buckeyes were very lucky that they had all those turnovers, things like that. Ryan Day, it's gotten so bad. I was worried about it against Iowa because they were running the ball and going nowhere and wasting drives. Now it's like CJ Stroud has such a small margin for error, because if you're going to run the ball on first and second down, now you give CJ Stroud a 3rd and 7, go make a play. What if he gets pressured? What if he throws an incompletion? You're punting. You need to be throwing the ball on 1st and 10. Embrace passing, especially when you see 8-man boxes. You've got Marvin Harrison Jr., you've got Emeka Egbuka, you've got Julian Fleming, Cade Stover. There is zero reason and zero excuse to run the football. If you are Ohio State and you see a loaded box, give up the play calling duties. Ryan Day's mind right now, it's fogged up. He's obsessed with being balanced, and it's hurting the team, and it almost cost Ohio State their game against Penn State. That's number 1. Number 2, Tennessee at Georgia is going to be 1 versus 2, so this is my prediction on what the College Football Playoff Committee will do with Tennessee annihilating Kentucky, Georgia easily beating Florida. I think they're going to go Georgia number 1, Tennessee 2, Ohio State 3, Michigan 4, Clemson 5, and then it's going to come down to a 1-loss Alabama versus an undefeated TCU for number 6. But the expectation right now, that massive 3:30 CBS game next week, Tennessee at Georgia, is going to be a 1v2 matchup, which would be great for college football. Ohio State versus Michigan is going to be 2v3. So Ohio State, after beating Penn State, is essentially guaranteed to go into their game against Michigan undefeated and probably ranked number 2, because the loser of Tennessee, Georgia, will fall below Ohio State, and Ohio State doesn't face anyone until the Michigan game. And then Michigan, they've got a very easy schedule except for the Illinois game, but they get Illinois at home, so I think Michigan will enter that game against Ohio State undefeated as well. My guess is the winner of Tennessee-Georgia is going to be ranked number 1. Ohio State's going to be ranked number 2. Michigan is going to be ranked number 3. And you're going to see a 2v3 Ohio State-Michigan matchup at the end of the regular season in the game, which will be in Columbus. That's going to be epic for everyone, certainly. Oklahoma State should be unranked. Yes, Oklahoma. You can't lose 48-0 against the backup quarterback. It's unacceptable. I know Oklahoma State only has 2 losses. I realize they were number 9. They're probably not going to be unranked, but personally, you just simply cannot lose 48-0. I'm sorry. You cannot be that uncompetitive in a football game. I can find 25 teams that are better than you. 48-0 to a backup quarterback. Listen, Kansas State is a decent team, but that's just ridiculous. I would have them unranked at this point. Clemson's resume got crushed, so in a week that Clemson didn't even play, We saw one of their big wins, Wake Forest, get annihilated by Louisville. We saw Syracuse get trounced at home to Notre Dame. There were a bunch of people who are obsessed with resume that were saying Clemson should be in front of Michigan. Clemson should be in front of Ohio State and Georgia because Clemson's got the better resume. Well, guys, Clemson, I've said they have major quarterback issues. I gave them a 0% chance of winning the national championship last week. I'm clearly going to stick to that. But on top of it, now all those people arguing that they have this great resume, it's not that good anymore. To me, Clemson is locked into being ranked number 5. And again, the massive quarterback issues. I think Notre Dame's going to beat Clemson next week, personally, guys. I'll just go ahead and say that Notre Dame is underrated. And we're going to get to that here in a little bit. But Clemson, their overall resume in a week they didn't play, it got hurt significantly. Number 6, TCU still isn't good enough. So I hate saying this, but we've seen the narrative already start with TCU being undefeated. Guys, we're holding TCU to a different standard than some of these undefeated teams. TCU was in a 3-point game with West Virginia with a minute left. They allowed 31 points. They do not have a good defense. TCU is a good story. I understand it, but I'm already starting to see the narrative of people saying TCU should be a top 4 team. They're undefeated. But it's just people are not holding TCU to the same standard as an Ohio State, as a Georgia, as a Michigan, to where, I mean, we saw people rip into Ohio State for their struggles against Penn State. We saw people rip into Michigan for their struggles against Maryland, Georgia with their struggles against Missouri, and it's like TCU is just not being held to that same standard. You know, you want to say they're undefeated, that's great, but, I mean, look at some of their wins. They're shootouts, they're close, they're losing these games in the fourth quarter. Come on, guys. TCU, it's a fun story. I think it's great for college football. But we really do have these rose-colored glasses when you've got an undefeated team that's kind of a Cinderella, not really understanding or seeing the full picture, where if Ohio State allowed 31 points to a team like West Virginia and they were in a 3-point game on the road, it would be World War III, right? Same thing with Michigan. They would be getting crushed. But with TCU, oh, they're undefeated. They're not being held to the same standard at this point. Number 7, Penn State is still a New Year's 6 bowl type team. I have them making one. So guys, Penn State, their last 4 games are very easy. They're extremely winnable. I believe the toughest game they have remaining is a home game versus Maryland, or it might be a road game versus Maryland. I don't know. But Penn State is 6-2. They're very likely to finish 10-2, and you probably will have Ohio State making the playoff, Michigan going to the Rose Bowl, and then Penn State also making a New Year's 6 bowl. That would be my prediction right now. Or maybe Ohio State and Michigan both make the playoff if Michigan loses a close game to Ohio State and that's their only loss. But Penn State, their season is not over. They're really not going to drop very far. They were really competitive with Ohio State, leading that game in the fourth quarter. ESPN FPI gave them a 60% chance to win that game midway through the fourth quarter. So this is a solid team who played well against Ohio State. Yes, it got away from them at the end, but they still covered the spread. So Penn State is still a good team. Number 8, Wake Forest was always fake. Guys, I've been saying it. They can't run the football. They rely on the pass too much, and we saw in the third quarter, it completely blew up in their faces with Sam Hartman having one of the most epic meltdowns I've seen from a college quarterback in a while. 6 turnovers in the third quarter alone. Wake Forest, coming in as 4-point favorites at Louisville, gets absolutely trounced, and that was one of Clemson's big wins right there, down the drain. Next, we've got Notre Dame isn't as bad as you think. So it really is sad what happened to Notre Dame. The loss to Ohio State didn't kill Notre Dame's season. The loss to Marshall didn't kill Notre Dame's season. What killed Notre Dame's season was the close home loss a few weeks ago to Stanford. If they would have won that game, they would be ranked right now. They would only have 2 losses. They are a decent football team. Everyone wants to pile on Ohio State for only beating Notre Dame by 11, but Notre Dame does have a solid defense. They're not bad. They beat Syracuse. They beat North Carolina, both of those games on the road. Their resume is getting better, and now they've got a major home game versus Clemson. So guys, people overreacted to Notre Dame and how bad they were, but I will say Notre Dame losing to Stanford, it is a bad look. To me, that's what ruined their season. They could have salvaged their season very easily by just beating Stanford at home, and you'd have 2 losses right now, and you're possibly a top 15, 16 type team. Number 10, the Big 12 and the Pac-12. In my opinion, I think they're going to have 0 playoff teams at this point. Just looking at it, I know people are going to reference TCU. Guys, look at their schedule. Look at their remaining games. I see them dropping at least 2, maybe 3 games. Oklahoma State now has 2 losses. They're completely out of it. And then the Pac-12. You've already got Utah with 2 losses. UCLA's probably going to get another loss. Oregon has that one horrible loss. Even if Oregon ran the table, it would be tough to see them getting in. And same thing with USC. It would be hard to see them getting in. They do have 1 loss, but they just kind of had a scare against Arizona. And guys, overall, UCLA's roster or USC's roster is just not that talented. They have Caleb Williams, Jordan Addison, and a bunch of average players. I know Lincoln Riley is really recruiting well, but it hasn't shown up yet. Number 11, the SEC is getting at least 2 teams in. So yeah, guys, with the emergence of Tennessee, it really isn't a question, will the SEC get 2 teams in? They are. It feels like the loser of this game between Georgia and Tennessee, and as long as they run the table, they're going to have a very strong argument as a 1-loss team. And then we've got the Armageddon scenario where, let's say Tennessee beats Georgia. Georgia finishes the regular season with 1 loss. Tennessee then, as an undefeated team, loses in the SEC championship to Alabama. Now Alabama's a 1-loss SEC champion. They're automatically in. Tennessee is a 1-loss team that only lost to Alabama. They're probably in. It creates a total Armageddon scenario. And I'm sure, the SEC people are foaming at the mouth for something like this to happen, because we would possibly be looking at 3 teams getting in. It doesn't help that, Mississippi State sucks, Kentucky sucks. Some of these teams that we thought might be able to challenge Tennessee and Georgia simply are just rolling over, and it is setting up for these 3 SEC teams to possibly all finish the regular season with 1 loss. If Michigan loses a close game to Ohio State, guys, this is very interesting. Let's say Michigan destroys Illinois. They destroy everyone. They're undefeated. Ohio State's undefeated. And Ohio State beats Michigan 31-28. And then Ohio State wins the Big Ten championship game. So Ohio State's in as an undefeated Big Ten champion. Where does that put Michigan? Michigan would have 1 loss. Guys, this is where Michigan's non-conference resume might kill them, because they'd be a 1-loss team, and their only loss would be at Ohio State in a close game. You think they would be in? I don't know. Their non-conference is so bad, it would be close. Of course, you have the SEC scenarios where they're probably getting 2 teams in. Whatever SEC teams are going to have better resumes than Michigan. Michigan's biggest wins, the Penn State win, I guess, would be their number 1 win on their resume. It's just... It's the one issue where Michigan's schedule is such a soft non-conference, it could really kill them, unfortunately, and it's sad because all Michigan had to do was schedule a decent Pac-12 team. They would beat them. Michigan has a good enough team to win that game, but instead they get, they're scared. They want to schedule nobodies, and if they lose to Ohio State, I don't know if they're going to have the resume, even though they probably should be in. I'm not sure they're going to have the resume to get in. Number 13, Hendon Hooker is the Heisman favorite right now. So this really doesn't matter because you've got Hendon Hooker and CJ Stroud, 1A and 1B. Who's going to win the Heisman? It depends. What does Hooker do against Georgia? What does CJ Stroud do against Michigan? Whoever has the better game to me in those 2 matchups is going to win the Heisman. If Hendon Hooker throws for 4 touchdowns and Tennessee wins, I think he wins the Heisman. If he does that against Georgia, if CJ Stroud comes out and annihilates Michigan, I think he wins. So right now it's setting up the 2 quarterbacks, not surprising, Hendon Hooker versus CJ Stroud. Both of them have 1 massive game remaining, and it's going to depend who plays better in that game. Number 14, Baylor is a top 20 team at this point. I understand, guys. Baylor has the 3 losses, but this is a very, very good football team. They have a strong chance to finish the regular season, I believe, at 9-3. They're really good, and they are underrated right now. I would have them inside my top 25, even with the 3 losses. And then we've got Chip Kelly, a total superstar. So Chip Kelly and UCLA, they easily bounce back, and they trounce Stanford just like I said they would. What a win, and what a team. Well, UCLA football is phenomenal. They're just so talented this year. Even coming off that loss to Oregon, they come back, they don't let it affect them, and they win in front of a sold-out Rose Bowl. So, guys, those are my Week 9 college football hot takes. That's going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description.